Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Galicchio. I'm a coach for Time for a 10. And this week, we're going to be talking about that voice in your head, that little voice, sometimes big voice that follows you everywhere you go.
Hello, I'm Sherry, and I am a newer coach in Time for a 10. And I look forward to talking about or hearing other people's experience with that voice.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I am Sue. I am also a coach at Time for a 10. And yeah, I got lots of voices, so we'll be talking.
Hi everyone, I'm Teague. I'm also a coach at Time for a 10 and share it's always, my head's always saying stuff. There's always stuff going on in there.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda. I'm the founder of timefor10.com, and I refer to it as my itty bitty committee. So I'm excited to talk about this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leanda, and I am a coach at timefor10.com. And yes, that annoying voice in my head. Can't wait to talk about it.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I know. So I'm not the only one, I guess. And most people have it. So I'm going to give you an example for me of what it's like for me. So I get up this morning at 6 o'clock. It's 8 now. So I'm across the country from everybody. So it's 3 hours earlier. And I wake up at 6. And I'm not real good in the morning, as I know a lot of you aren't. And I have to take a shower. I have to get dressed. I have to do this. I have to do that. And my voice is talking to me. Come on, Linda, you need to hurry up. Come on. You need to do this. You need to do that. But what did I want to say about this? Oh, yeah, I don't want to forget that. And then my husband came up to me and said, hey, could you help me with this little problem with our friend? Just give me a few minutes. I go, oh, okay, I'll give you a few, but you have to hurry up. And I'm sitting there listening to him. Now I want to hear him, but my voice is telling me I have to do 50 other things because I'm busy. I'm getting ready. And I mean, I'm sure you all know what I mean. I don't have to say it. And I said, all I have to do is just tell you what happened this morning. And that's exactly, for me, what this topic is about. It's never quiet. It's a stream of, I believe it's a stream of consciousness coming towards you that's moving on and on and on. Things that are not real, things that are lies. But I do believe that in the beginning, it's sort of like, it's to help us navigate the world. I think it's part of our how we came about to be. And so what it does sometimes is tell us what we're doing and how to navigate the world, and so we won't be in danger and things like that, like watch out for the car, things that we learn from a very young age, and they keep repeating over and over and over and over and over. And it can get really to be a pain, especially when they're negative, and they do tend to skew negative. In our biology right now, we do tend to default to the negative. But so I will, in coming up next, talk about some details and individual things. But just be thinking about, what is it that your head says to you? And I think that one of the things that's really good for us is to be aware of what it is saying. And then I'll tell you maybe how we may be able to change some of it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Linda. That was a great intro. I mean, I can completely identify with that. And I like how you referred to the formation of what these thoughts are and how they came at such an early age, because I understand that the way our brain forms, between 1 and 7 or whatever is a very critical time period. And that's where I'm taking in a human baby is taking in the world and interpreting it. And then what I have noticed for me is that's the things that I took in is what I believed to be and to be real. And so I took that with me as I grew and got older. And what I have learned, and especially I had a recent visit to my parents, and when I did that this past weekend, I saw so clearly where my belief system began and how, again, I believed it to be true and didn't know that there were other ways to think. And so the constant conversation, the constant narrative in my head is based on that very early impression. And so it's very freeing to learn in adulthood, later adulthood, but at least I'm learning now that it doesn't have to stay that way. And if I follow some suggestions from other people, then I can let that voice actually start to think newer things. But it takes repetition for me. I have to constantly remind myself, no, that's not the way things are. No, that's not reality, Sherry. No, they aren't out to get you. No, they aren't planning and plotting against you. No, you are good enough. But that's something that I have to repeat to myself over and over. And then it starts to get that impression set, a new impression set, a new program, like a computer, if you will. And so running that new operating system, it takes some effort on my part, but it's just amazing to be able to sit back and look at them now and see where the follies are, because that's given me the basis to try and turn them around. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Oh, I love this topic. Wow. So, for me, gosh, if you had told me about voices in my head 20 years ago, my first reaction would be, okay, now comes the crazy talk, because I didn't, for me, I didn't want to pay attention to what was going on in my head. I was all about out there. The answer was out there. Let me find the answer out there. I didn't want to pay attention to what was going on inside of me. And the more I started paying attention to what was going on inside of me, the more I realized how many conversations I had going on in my head at every given moment of the day, And they were conversations with other people that weren't there, but a lot of them were conversations with myself. And my absolute loudest voice before I started doing what I call the work, the work to kind of make me a healthier person, was definitely that critical parent voice. And I love that you talked about we take it in and it's our belief system when we're kids, and that voice stuck with me. And here I was in my 40s and I was still listening to that critical belief system. And that was where I had to start paying attention to, wait a minute, you know what? There are other voices in my head too. It's not all just that critical voice. And I started kind of getting a better understanding of them. And today I recognize that I have this amazing, loving adult voice that I had to develop over the past 20 years. I always say she was like an atrophied muscle, but the more I used her, the stronger she became. And now she is like, wow, she's always right there. Love her. But I also have all of these little childlike voices. And I've said for many years now, my emotions are like kids. They're like children. So when I'm fearful, it kind of feels like a little 6-year-old going, oh my God, what's going to happen? And that's one of the voices in my head, fear voices or hurt voices or and recognizing those voices, and I call it befriending those voices. Even my critical parent voice, I learned how to befriend that, but I'll talk about that again later. So I'll stop there.
Yes, this is all wonderful, and I've had the voices in my head going on for my entire life, like pretty much we all have, and yeah, the critical voice, but it's more of a positive, supportive, and kind and caring voice now. But what's running through my head now is conversations. My wife and I go on the road for work. We do commercial real estate appraisals, and we'll all of a sudden we're in an argument. She's like, "Really, you're in an argument with yourself because you're talking to past me. You're like not even giving me a chance to for current me to communicate with you. She's like, you're having a conversation in your own head with fake me, fake her. But she was saying fake me. And I'm like, chills just went up my back because I finally have understood what she's saying. It took a little while, but now I'm getting it. It's like, yeah, like taking things at face value instead of, fighting about something that may have never even happened. It's just something that's running through my head, like past conversations and arguments I've had with other people, and I bring it into a conversation with somebody like today in present time, and it's like they're looking at me like, it's not really what's happening. That's not really fact. And over time now, over the last couple of years, and especially now recently, over the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, it's been much more calm over most of the time in my head. And that's only, learning from people like us sitting in this podcast now, and, with other people that have things in common with me, and, working on ourselves to better ourselves. And that's all I have for right now.
Great. I love what's been shared so far, and I can so identify with the belief system that gets installed between the ages of 0 and 7. And when I look back and I think about that belief system, I mean, my family of origin, school teachers, people in the neighborhood, that belief system came from all of those individuals. So the narrative that's going on in my mind isn't even my narrative. It's their narrative. And sometimes what I'll do is and it's funny because I do call it my itty bitty committee, because usually it's based in fear. Usually the self-talk that starts, ruminating and repeating and constantly going is my fear system. And it's based in that program. Something will trigger that fear system. And so one of the things that I was taught to do is when I'm having those moments where I start to spin and that committee is going and going and going and it's nonstop, is I pause, I ground myself, of course, because I've learned how to do that as a way to connect to my heart and get out of my fear-based amygdala system and into my heart. And I ask myself, how old do I feel in that moment? And I can kind of get an idea of, what part of that belief system is being triggered right now for this committee to be going in the way that it is. And what I find is it's not my narrative. It is not my belief system. It's a program that's running in my brain. It's like a path on a trail. It's well grounded. It's ingrained. I know how to go down this path. It just kind of takes on a life of its own. And when I can pause and do some grounding and really challenge what it's saying, and that's the key for me is to say, wait a minute, is that even true? What this committee is telling me right now, or this voice or this thought, is it even true what it's telling me? And 9 out of 10 times, it's not even true. And so this work has taught me to challenge that. In other words, get out of the belief system that, by the way, is installed in my mind. It's not in my heart. It's all in this, I call it my little box, right? And how restrictive is this little box that I'm working in? So when I can get out of my mind and into my heart, which expands all the way outward, it's a whole different conversation. And I think we're going to talk about ways to get into our heart and out of our head. So this is a great topic, Linda. Thanks for bringing it.
Yeah, you've all said such great things that I can relate to. And for me, I look at that voice as it's trying to protect me. So there's something that happened to me somewhere in my life that, scared me or made me sad or had me feel some negative emotion. And that voice is just trying to protect me, right? But the thing about protection is it keeps you limited. Like Brenda said, you're in that little box. You can't do all the things that you truly want to do if you're listening to that voice and you're living a fearful life, because that voice will point out so many different dangers that you can encounter throughout the day. You won't want to leave your house if you listen to that voice. So the thing is, what I've found is, you know, I start to combat it. I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like, what about this? You know, and changing that narrative for me was so helpful because I literally would get lost in fear. I would get lost. I would, you know, I can't do that. I can't, you know, something like this I would have never done listening to that voice. Yeah, everyone's listening to you. They're gonna have something negative to say about what you're saying. That voice, it will completely stagnate you.
Thank you, Leanda. Thank you, everybody. This is, you know, everything everybody says just sort of resonates wholly, totally. So there's maybe two things that I think about that maybe we can do about that voice. Now, that voice takes on a life of its own, and it's going to go on and on anyway. But maybe one of the things that I've been taught to do is to change the voice. Now, I can't totally change the voice, but maybe pieces of the voice that are very negative and that I want to be more positive. For instance, doing, I can't think of the word, you know, saying good things, positive things instead of bad things. Saying, no, you're really not this, you're really not that. Looking in the mirror, saying you are wonderful, you know, you are happy, this and that, and the other thing, going on and on. And people do that. Oh, affirmations. I'm sorry. Doing affirmations. And that's good. You know, you can write affirmations, journaling, and all those kinds of things. And they help. They definitely help. But what I think is even more helpful to me is about changing your relationship to those voices. In other words, okay, I have those voices, both positive and negative. Let me see if I can stop, become mindful of those voices, listen to them, become aware. And I think the word awareness is very important in this whole thing, because you're going to, because otherwise it goes on with you're not even noticing. But if you're going to stop, become mindful of what are you saying now, and you're aware of it. And also that creates feelings. It creates emotions from what your head is saying to you. So what emotions are those creating? What is this, true or not true? And what can I do about this? Well, how am I reacting to it? For me, if something is negative, I hear it, I become that scared little child, and I can go from 1 to 100 in about 5 minutes in reaction. And that has been my biggest issue all along, is going, not being able to control my reactions to these things that my mind is saying. So I think mindfulness is a really good thing. I know, so is meditation. And I know people know a lot about meditation. And can it change these things all the time? No, but it does have its usefulness, and we can talk about that also. But I just want to say that if we do catch it, and if we do sit down with it, like Sue was saying, and learn what it's about, we can change our reaction to it. And I know for a lot of us, that's really important, because that opens up our hearts and minds, and that does make better relationships with people, for sure. When we start going off like, thank you.
So it's funny that I'm glad that you were saying that, Linda, because what was coming to my mind, well, what are those voices? I mean, I took everything that I knew to be true. And so what I had to do was sit down and kind of write out, what are those things, and tell them to another person. And that's when I learned that everything I thought, not everything, but most things that I thought to be true might not be. And I was also taught a technique to challenge what those thoughts are. So yes, that's to question, is that true? Is that what is really going on? Because I can't do anything else about it unless I know what's there to begin with. So I had to write them all down and get familiar with them so I could start to spot them, and then I can challenge. And then I can come up with practices for ways to calm that that ever consistent buzz in the back of my head that is that voice. And but again, I think it started out with being able to identify them first.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm loving what everybody is saying. I feel like, oh yeah, talk about that. Oh, I think what I'm gonna jump on is, Linda, when you said changing your relationship with those voices, because the truth is that I believe, and this is just my opinion, that all of those voices are some part of me. They're the part of me that grew up in my family of origin, or they're the part of me that had a traumatic event happen. They're the part of me that's trying to save me or protect me, or is just expressing what's going on around me. But I think they're all a part of me. And in that way, all of those voices are positive. They're trying to help. And they may be misguided. And that's what helped me more than anything to change my relationship with my hardest voice to deal with, which was that critical parent voice that I talked about. Because it was the number one voice in my head before I started doing this kind of work. It was all day, every day. It was relentless. And its goal was to protect me. It's a part of me. It's trying to protect me. It thinks if only we could make Sue perfect, then we won't get in trouble. Nobody will judge us. We'll be safe, and it was misguided, because the truth is I'm not capable of being perfect. And so the way I changed my relationship with that voice, and I love that you talked about, both you and Sherry talked about this, Linda, is getting to know those voices, and it was becoming more familiar with them. And the number one thing I started doing was listening to them. I'm full of fear. What is that? Okay, I hear you. And then I'm talking to myself at this point. I hear you. I am so full of fear over this. Wow, this is really, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of this. And like you, Sherry, I wrote a lot of that down because I came in so full of it, so full of all of these voices, that it was like overwhelming at first. I had to get it all down on paper. And I had someone help me with that too. That was really helpful. But nowadays, when I hear that critical voice pop up, I immediately just start talking to it. You know what? I hear you, that you're scared of something right now, Sue. You're really scared of something, and you're trying to make me perfect. But guess what? I'm not going to be perfect today. But so we're going to not do that. But what can we do right now to kind of be okay in this moment? And that's the start of it for me. It changes the relationship. Love that.
Yeah, this is wonderful. You're all saying what I'm thinking in my head right now. So it's pretty amazing how that works. And yeah, I'm gonna double down on the whole, like, giving each of those voices their like due time for me to communicate with it, because it's only going to help me, understand myself better, and then be able to be more like available to other people besides myself. Yeah, and you said the critical voice, yeah, it pops up sometimes. But yeah, like, I don't have to agree with that critical voice, right? Like, it's not fact, it's not reality, and yeah, the more that I'm working on those things, I don't know, the more, in a way, my mind is more open, or more free, or more available, and yeah, being kind to those, each voice is right. Being kind and compassionate to those voices it's important, not to like fight and battle. Don't be critical of the critical voice.
It's great. And what was coming into my awareness was, what we resist persists. And I love what's been shared about being curious about what those voices are saying. I did a video, or we did a video that I posted on our Time for 10 YouTube channel at Time for 10. And it talks about the power of validation and active listening. And it talks about that in relationships, all relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. If we take a moment, I mean, think about it. When my committee, I call it my committee, is activated and it's telling me all kinds of things, I'm usually afraid of something. And if I actively listen to what it's saying and I validate it, my amygdala becomes less activated. The amygdala is where it's the fear center of your brain. So if I, just like Sue was saying and Sherry was saying and Linda was saying, if I validate the feeling, yeah, it's okay to be afraid. Yeah, this might feel really scary. I'm down 10 notches now. I'm not all up here. I'm down 10 notches. So I'm moving out of this box and into my heart, because I've opened the door to understanding that feeling within myself. And now I could actively listen to more about what's going on. And then I, like Sherry was saying, now I'm in a position to start applying some of the tools to reframe it, to question its reality. Is this real? Is this something that's happening now? Or is this coming from something that happened when I was 5 years old? Now I can have some discernment about what the voice is telling me. But I can't do that when I'm in an activated state. I have to validate the feeling, actively listen to what's being said, and then I have an opportunity, because I'm not so scared in this moment, because like Sue was saying, that part of me is I'm holding space for it. And because I'm holding space for it, this whatever, wherever it's coming from, it's energy, right? Everything is energy in our body. So I'm holding space for that energy and I'm giving it a way to release itself. I'm giving it a way to release itself. And that's the key here, is to be able to experience whatever that fear is. Truly, we're experiencing fear. To experience whatever that fear is going on fully, so it can be released, so that energy can be moved out of your body. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what came into my awareness about this discussion that we're having about releasing it and validating and actively listening to it.
What comes to my mind when I'm listening to you guys speak, my husband once said, you have to become the CEO of all of those personalities. You become the manager and you take charge and you use them for what they're good for, you know, just as a CEO. You look at your employees and you say, okay, this one's good at this and this one's good at that. And you manage all of those voices. For me, I have like two very extreme voices that come, and it's, I think about the cartoon with the little devil and the little angel on the shoulder. So they're two very extreme personalities. And I don't know if it's because I'm a Pisces or what, but they're two very extreme personalities. So that's why I'm always, trying to silence the negative one. And nope, this is not a good time, but it is still necessary at times to kind of like, put up about a boundary or, stop something from happening. So I don't want to totally silence the voice, but I do want to, let it know it's not needed in the time. Like, and we've talked about some of the things that the voices do and say. And for me, I would rehearse arguments repetitively. Like I would rehearse arguments that would never happen. And I would spend so much time and energy just, I'm going to say this and I'm going to, and I'm putting on a play in my head, basically entertaining myself, but I'm wasting so much energy and valuable time that I could be putting towards other things. So for me, it's almost like my intuition and then, something that's trying to get me to act out of fear, right? So that's those two extreme voices. So what I do is I have to calm myself, ground myself, and okay, what does this feel like? Does it feel like fear, or does it feel, when that intuition is speaking, it's always calm and it's very loving, and it's non-judgmental, and it's just a little guidance. It's not forceful like that fear voice. The fear voice is, don't do it. It's very pushy. And so, being able to distinguish what you're hearing and what you're listening to and what you're letting guide you is very important.
Thank you, Leanda. Yes, I can so relate. It's very important because for me, I'm doing a little bit of family therapy. Now, there's the good one for you. So there's about 5 of us, and I don't know how that's going to be. And one of us in the family is a psychiatrist. So we're doing that for a little while. And so here I am. I just agreed to do that yesterday. So all the rest of the day yesterday was, well, she's going to say this, and I'm going to say this. And when she does this, I'm going to do that. Oh my God, but what if this one says that? I can't even tell you. I got such a headache. I'm serious. I got a headache because, again, myself wants to protect me because I think I'm going to walk in there and go, choo, choo. Everyone's going to be shooting rubber bullets at me, and it's all going to be negative. And, that's how I think. That's what my mind wants me to believe. But the people inside of me, the little kids, and all of that is scared to death. And I think that, so what I did say to myself was, you want something here from these people, and the only way you can get it is by doing this. Okay. So will we do it? Yes, we will do it. It's very important to us. So what I do is, like, people on this meeting are really, you can tell we've all done a lot of this work. I call some of these people on this meeting. I have my own therapist. I call them because they help me. They point. They're like pointers in the right direction. They're not going to exactly tell me, Linda, you need to do this. You need to do. What we do is we ask you questions. What do you think is going to happen if you say that in this situation? And I will tell you, when that happens, I come up with answers that I never thought that I knew. Oh my God, I think that. Oh my God, I can fix that for myself, or I can understand that I don't need this particular thing anymore. And I'm telling you, I need all this help right now. So I am talking to a lot of people, and all they're doing is pointing me in the direction that I can't point myself in at this moment. And it's really helpful. And eventually, after all this help, I will remember these things, or I will know how to do it. I will know how to sit with myself, how to say, yes, honey, this is okay. That's okay. And this person isn't meaning to hurt you, because the truth of the matter is that it's always about you. Other people's perceptions is about them. So it's just about, for me, getting myself to understand all those things. Yeah, thank you.
I love what you said, Linda, about the conversations that you had, and I believe Teague said that, and everybody. Conversations, arguments inside my head. I love that, because for me, that indicates I'm in what was mentioned earlier, that activated state. And what I have found, just from a recent experience, is when I am in that activated state, I don't know what to do. I can freeze. I can't tell myself the truth at that time, and those are critical times. And so what I have found so incredibly helpful is to have people like all of y'all that I could call. Yesterday, I did call a person, and that stopped that hamster on the hamster wheel that's running. That's what I call my brain that's going, 1,000 miles an hour. It stopped that hamster wheel, and the hamster was questioned. Really, is this what's going on? Might it be something else? But it was only then that I was able to consider something. But it was only because I have been able to identify that the things that put me in that activated state, that gave me the idea to stop and to call somebody. And Because otherwise I get lost in my thoughts. And I just remember being terrified yesterday when I had this experience, because my thoughts are to stop. Okay, well, what's going on, Sherry? And I tried to do that and I was like, I don't know. I can't see it. I can literally not see it. And so I literally needed to stop and ask somebody else for help. And that, what a great resource that is. I'm just so thankful for it.
Mm. Wow. Okay, I'm loving this. First of all, Leanda, I love what your husband said about you got to become the CEO. Being a mom, I decided I needed to become the loving mom of my group of voices in my head, because I always see my emotions as like little kids, and when I am activated, when I am in an emotion like hurt or fear or something like that, I feel very childlike. I absolutely feel those feelings of I don't know what to do, and I do need someone else sometimes to show up for me as a very loving adult. But what I love is how I talked about, my loving adult voice in my head was very atrophied 20 years ago, and I had to learn how to use her. And so often today, I can do that for myself. And that not always. When I'm in my worst moments, I'm like everybody else. I need to go to somebody who is safe, who is objective, which is why I love the women people in Teague. I'm sorry, I say women, but then the people in this group, and I have this group of women who I go to, and they are my safe people, and I bring my issues to them when I am activated. But most of the time today, and this is what I love, most of the time today, because I have been working on developing this loving adult voice to manage, kind of like a CEO, all of the little children voices in my head. Um, a lot of times I can do that for myself, and I can calm them down. And like Brenda was saying, take it from here to down here, so that I'm not stuck in that extreme activation. And uh, to me, oh, what a gift to get to do that. I can remember before I did any of this work being activated and just trying to shove everything down. It was kind of that, those extremes. I was either fully activated or everything was suppressed, and neither was a good place.
Yeah, this is all wonderful. You're saying activated, and yeah, let's just roll with activated. So, Father's Day is tomorrow, and in the past, my father he wouldn't even have to be in the same state, and he would activate me. And and I worked with him for years, and almost every morning before work, I was really the one having an argument, and he would look at me like, what are we even fighting about? You're having like an argument with yourself. It was like I was like pre gaming and a conversation, an argument with him before it even happened. And tomorrow's Father's Day, and I'm not activated heading into it. Like, I've worked on myself to the point where he doesn't activate me anymore. And my wife, she's choosing not to go because she doesn't like how he treats like my sister and I. And I'm like, I'm so past it, I don't even notice it anymore. She's like, how do you not? What's the point in, you know, focusing on that when I can focus on, like, I don't know, the positive stuff, and not being activated and actually being able to have a conversation and not the argument in my head, like with him, but not real him, and just enjoy our time together. And yeah, I choose not to be activated anymore with him. And I don't know, I'm kind of rambling now, so I'm gonna pass it on.
No, you made perfect sense. I love what you said, Teague, because as we do this work, we get to make choices on what we're going to give power to and what we're not. And that's really what you're saying, is that because you've done this work, you choose not to give that power, and now you can show up in a completely different way. And that's the beauty of doing the work. And, the other thing that's been said that is really important is, brain can't fix our brain. So in the beginning, when we're when we're starting the journey of doing this work, it's really important to have other people that have done this work walk you through it, because they can challenge your thinking in a way that you're not able to yet. But as you challenge the voices, as you challenge the narrative, when it pops up again, by practicing, right? When it pops up again, you can say, oh, wait, I know where that's coming from. And I can bypass that because we've already talked about it. Or you can have that conversation with the part or the feeling that's coming up and say, hey, we're good right now. We're going to just move past this and enjoy the moment. I couldn't do that until I worked with other people who could show me a different version of what I was saying to myself in my mind, a different perspective. And that takes time and practice. So now when these voices come up, more often than not, I can say, oh, I know what this is about. I'm familiar with it. It's no longer an enemy, it's a friend. I can be curious about it. I can ask it what's going on. I can interrogate it, validate it, have a different relationship with it and move past it much more quickly than I was able to before. Before, like you were saying, Teague, it would be a conversation. It could be a day-long argument, like Leanda was saying, where I'm rehearsing it over and over again. Today, I can bypass that. And it's not spiritual bypassing. It's just knowing where it's coming from and that I don't have to necessarily engage with it in that moment. And what Sherry was saying about picking up the phone, I mean, that's really what we do for each other at Time for a 10. Whenever we're having a disturbance, I call it a disturbance, we kind of inventory that disturbance. We identify where it's really coming from, because it's never really about what's happening in the moment. It's coming from a much deeper place. And we can show each other where it's coming from and how to remedy that. And then the situation or circumstance that triggered that feeling kind of works itself out in that moment. This has been great to talk about this today. I really enjoyed it and learned so much from all of your perspectives on it. And that's really how the working with other people really helps, having this different kind of committee that's going to shine a different light on it. Now I'm rambling, so I'm done.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, such good things said. So I think an important takeaway is when we kind of listen to that voice and we start going along with it, we can like get pulled into a whirlwind of thoughts. Like my father used to call them wormholes. Like you just get lost in this story that is made up, basically, that never happened, that could potentially happen, but hasn't happened. And you just get lost in it. And I think it makes you more susceptible or sensitive to being triggered, to, letting some outside stimuli just completely throw us off and have us acting outside of ourselves. So when I say triggered, when we do get triggered by something in the current that is reminding us of something that happened in the past, our brain shuts down. We're not able to think clearly. We're not able to make decisions. We need the support. So being able to identify and say, okay, I'm triggered. I need to take a step back. I need to call someone. I need help in this moment is so important to, evolving out of this state of allowing yourself to continuously be triggered. For me, those wormholes, as my father would call them, they can last days. They can last weeks. So the identification and being able to pull yourself out of that so that it doesn't go on for weeks, days, months, or become just part of your personality is essential. And having this community has been wonderful for pulling your, helping to identify what is causing this trigger, what is causing these thoughts, what is the root of all of this. It's been, such a great place to come and be able to kind of unpack all of those thoughts.
Thank you, Leanda. Thank you, everybody. So much good stuff. And I'm sure we'll revisit this again because it's such a huge, broad topic. And thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your support. And if any of us, you think that you want to talk to us anytime, just go to atimeforattend.com. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.